Welcome to the Irish Revolution. Last month, August 1919, we looked at the general IRA organisation and strategy in the autumn of this year. We also looked a little bit ahead at the campaign in general, so if you're interested in the military history side of things, then you should really watch that episode. That said, just so you know, you don't necessarily have to watch these episodes in sequence. I like to think that you should be able to follow what's going on within each episode. It should be self-contained. This month we're going to look at some IRA raids and ambushes, as well as the suppression of the Dáil, the revolutionary parliament, by the government. So, some IRA raids and ambushes. On the 2nd of September, an RIC cycle patrol was ambushed between Lorha and Carrigahoog in County Tipperary, which resulted in the death of one RIC man, Sergeant Philip Brady, and the serious wounding of another, Constable Foley. Among the IRA men who took part in the ambush were John Madden, Michael Hogan, John Gilligan and James Carroll. Madden was later tried for the murder of Sergeant Brady. These attacks were still ongoing in County Tipperary despite the vast resources poured into the area by the British state. More spectacularly, on the 7th of September, 15 British soldiers were attacked in Fermoy, County Cork by the Fermoy Battalion of Cork No. 2 Brigade, which was led by Larry Condon and Liam Lynch. One soldier died in the incident. The 15 rifles were also captured. This resulted in the first major British reprisal of the War of Independence, when the army went on a rampage and burned some buildings in the town in response. The attack was first theorised months in advance and had been intricately planned out. It was even submitted to General Headquarters for review. This would not be the norm going forward. Local units would act on their own initiative as opportunities arose. Headquarters gave the green light for this operation on the condition that the attack be carried out without violence. The historian Charles Townsend suggests that this indicated a persistent anxiety about the public reaction to violence, and that indeed the condition indicates a lack of willingness to take responsibility for IRA actions. We tend to look back with hindsight with the oft-quoted ideal of a nation in arms, but you need to remember that the War of Independence was a highly localised one. The violence was often considered a last resort by many, and that it was deeply regretted by others when it happened. Attitudes to violence varied widely. Indeed, the local Fermoy IRA were so concerned about the perceived loyalty of witnesses to the attack on the soldiers that they carried out a concerted campaign of witness intimidation, plastering walls with, quote, spies and informers beware, unquote. The implicit threat behind that being quite clear. Fermoy was a garrison town and was considered more loyal than most to Crown forces. In fact, an Irish Volunteers parade in 1917 was attacked by local so-called separation women, i.e. women whose husbands served in the British Army. The Fermoy attack was nevertheless a great success for the IRA because, as I just said, Fermoy was a major garrison town. On the same day, there was an attack by the 8th Battalion of the Cork No. 1 Brigade, which attacked a military patrol at the Slippery Rock near Coolavockig, resulting in the capture of several rifles and bicycles. General Headquarters was slowly coming to the realisation that they wouldn't be able to fully control this thing, and the freedom to the units out in the country would be paramount. You have to remember that the general idea of a guerrilla war was not a widely understood concept at the time. The IRA were reacting to realities on the ground. Their lack of weapons and resources made guerrilla warfare the only practical method of waging war. On 12th of September, the intelligence war in Dublin ramped up with an attack on Detective Constable Daniel Hoey of the G Spy Division DMP, Dublin Metropolitan Police, who was shot dead by the IRA in Townsend Street near the police headquarters. While the G Spy Division in Dublin were under constant threat of attack, there was a general awareness in the countryside that the police were vulnerable. In the autumn of 1919, a large number of police barracks in the south and west were evacuated, particularly in the more remote areas. This perfectly illustrated the weakening hold of the British state over large parts of the country and gave a window opportunity for Sinn Fein and the IRA to deepen the influence of the revolutionary counter-state. The Dáil Courts began to flourish everywhere outside of Ulster. 2 RIC men were attacked upon leaving church in Berrins near Blarney. Nobody was willing to identify the attackers despite there being many witnesses. A local policeman reported that several nationalists, making the distinction between nationalists and Sinn Féiners, told them that nobody would dare to speak with the police. The official campaign of police ostracisation was clearly working. As Michael Hopkinson noted in his History of the Irish War of Independence, joining the police was until very recently considered a socially acceptable move for Irish Catholics. Yet this had completely changed by the autumn of 1919. Recruitment was falling and resignations were rising. The stage was being set for the introduction of the notorious Black and Tans next year. Now, moving on to the Revolutionary Parliament, Dáil Éireann. On the 11th of September, the British formally banned Dáil Éireann, the revolutionary parliament composed of the Sinn Fein MPs elected in the 1918 general election. You might well be asking yourself why it took so long. In fact, officially speaking, there was nothing technically illegal about Irish members of parliament meeting as a body in Ireland. But sooner or later it was bound to be banned by the Crown forces, and this month they finally got round to it. In some ways this was an escalation of the conflict, as the peaceful avenue for dissent had now been pushed underground, leaving only the military force option of the IRA. As Michael Hopkinson wrote, quote, "To a considerable extent the divisions between Sinn Féin and the IRA amounted to a generation gap. While the IRA was primarily a young man's organisation, Sinn Féin consisted of mature men preferring rhetoric and administration." Unquote. No passive resistance strategy had been implemented, except perhaps the formation of the Dáil Courts. The Paris Peace Conference proved a disappointment. Now the ball was firmly in the IRA's court. Also this month, the Dáil Commission of Inquiry into Resources and Industry was set up. It represented strongly Arthur Griffiths' economic ideas of autarky and economic self-sufficiency. Griffiths was, by the way, the acting president now that De Valera was in America. There had been for some time a deeply entrenched belief that Ireland had been systematically overtaxed. The purpose of the commission was to accurately measure the economic resources of the nation and decide how it would be best to put these resources to use. Although it turned out much less impressive than originally billed, mostly because of the ban on the Dáil, which made the work much harder. It was headed up by Darrell Fidges, who was sharply criticised by Michael Collins due to the slow nature of the inquiry. Fidges did, however, attract some international press attention for his numerous close escapes from British raids. In other news, the Dáil lodged £200,000 into the National Cooperative Mortgage Bank this month. The bank was set up by Robert Barton. And a few miscellaneous things here. And to finish today, Michael Collins is formally made Director of Intelligence of the IRA. As we've seen today, there were quite a few IRA ambushes and raids, and the campaign against the police was certainly escalating. While the role of Michael Collins in all of this can at times be exaggerated, he was still a hugely significant figure, and one way or the other, this series of videos will be devoting a lot of time to him. And one last final point, by the end of September, the security forces are reckoned to have raided over 5,500 private homes in the year to date. This figure may have been significantly higher. And a few biographies to finish us off here. Liam Lynch was the commandant of the Cork No. 2 Brigade during the War of Independence. He took part in the operation to capture General Lucas in June 1920. He was one of the more successful IRA leaders of the war, taking part in many successful ambushes in Cork. In April 1921, the IRA was reorganised into a divisional structure and Lynch was made the commander of the 1st Southern Division. He later opposed the treaty and became the commanding general of the anti-treaty forces. And Darrell Fidges, he was a writer and a political activist. He joined the Irish Volunteers in 1913 and took part in the Howth gun running. He was chosen to head the Dáil Commission of Inquiry into the Resources and Industry of Ireland in September 1919. He was pro-treaty. He was assaulted by anti-treaty Republicans in 1922 when they forcibly shaved off his lovely beard, which you can see in the photo. Sadly, Fidges seemed to have led a sad life. His wife committed suicide in 1924 with a gun gifted to them by Michael Collins. His new girlfriend and unborn child died a year later due to peritonitis. Fidges took his own life on October 26, 1925. Sorry to leave on that somber note. Thanks a lot for watching and see you soon. Good luck now. Bye.